Welcome to this week's Food Sports Central, the podcast of the World Food Championships. I'm your host, Mark Conway, and once again, we are a few days closer to Final Table. Final Table being the culmination of the 2022 food sports season. That's the big POW came in November at the World Food Championships, but of course, the months leading up to that were all the different qualifiers in different states and areas that led to 10 categories being packed out with about 30 teams each and them battling out to be the one category champion. And the past few weeks, we've been meeting the different category champions from 2022. Some, this is their very first time. Some, this is a second or third or ninth time. So it really shows you the gambit that the World Food Championships is. It is a level playing field all the way across because everybody's competing in a category that they're won their way into. They know what they've got to do. The guidelines are laid out. They understand judging and they put out their best dish. This year, of course, had some wrinkles. We had uh, one cook in the opening round versus in previous years we had two. We had structured and signature in prior years. This year, we just went to one cook. Then out of that, you took 30 teams and took them down to what was 10, but this year was 11 as master judges hit the scene. And master judges could put one person into the final round of 10 that put 11 people cooking to become the category champion. And as you've met with some of the others we've had, we've heard from the Dan Rain, we've heard from Jody Taffel, we've heard from several that, and then those two, you look at a Dan Rain and a Jody Taffel, opposite ends of the spectrum. First time jumping in, came in through Taste of America with Dan Rain, and then Jody Taffel's been at a kind of a staple at the World Food Championships. And then you start to consider the categories. We had soup, vegetarian. We had dessert, very namely beautiful categories. You see lots of color, lots of different layers. And then you have the fan favorites. You have steak, you have bacon, and you have burger. Just to name a few, seafood, of course, all of them, sandwich. They all come into different fan bases, but there's a couple of categories every year that really truly are those home run categories that are always hotly contested, always talked about. The smell in the arena is amazing, and you know what's happening before anything's even announced. If you walked in during the middle of one of these cooks and you just smelled the arena, you can guess which category it is. And today, we're going to talk with the champion that came out of one of those categories. Even more layers to that, it is a previous category champion that went on to win the World Food Championships, but not in the category he won in this year. So the category we're talking about is burger. Everybody loves burger. It is one of the most just drooled over categories. It is one of those things that everybody goes out and they just have that hankering. I want a really good burger. Whether it's a double, a triple, a smash, a slider, whatever it is, burgers captivate people. I mean, and this year was really an example of that, considering we had the most global impact on a category in burger. We had teams from Japan, teams from Dubai, teams from all over the country. Like, that is a category that just shows you how popular burger is. This year's champion was a previous world champion coming out of the dessert category in 2013. And I'd like to welcome to the show the 2022 World Burger Champion, Dave Elliott. How are you, sir?
Good, Mark. How are you doing?
I'm good, man. Like, you really came back and you didn't just come back and compete. You came back and knocked it out of the park inside a
Yeah.
category that was wildly difficult, that really had close calls,
Mhm.
tight scores, and that massive global
Yeah.
influence. And you came out on top in burger, man. That had to have felt good.
Yeah, it does. It still feels good, and it's still really kind of unbelievable because of everything you just said. It's always been a really strong category. Never would I have thought that I would have done this well. I mean, coming into this year, I would have been happy just to make the top 10. I never ever thought, would have come out on top, winning burger.
What made you now in 2013 you won the whole
Hmm.
thing. You were the world food champion and you came out of the dessert
Right.
category. Now, what made you switch from say dessert to now going into a category like burger?
Um, after dessert, I'm not much of a dessert guy. Excuse me, there's a few desserts that I have, and that's pretty much what I've stuck with over the years, and I pretty much used it all that year. Um, that was pretty much it for me for dessert. So, went to pasta, after that. Um, did that and then hit burger and then did steak for a few years, and then decided to come back to burger. Just everyone loves a great burger. And I had a couple recipes that I was really proud of, in my back pocket, and it's like, well, let's give it another go, and worked out.
Yeah, I'd say it worked out. And I love when you say, I'm not much of a dessert guy. I am the reigning, the 2013 world dessert champion that
Well,
went on to win the World Food Championships in a format where you were really banging out your best desserts. And then you're like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and rock burger too and come out on top. And man, I remember tasting some of those. One of the few categories I got to taste some
hmm
in. And those burgers were not only they were as diverse as the countries they
yeah,
came from, but to me, I really think burger pushed the boundaries this year probably harder than ever before.
yeah. And I wish, being, cooking in that category, I didn't to get as good of a look at what everybody else was doing as I usually, was able to. I just would catch glimpses, but seeing the stuff that people were putting out this year, it was pretty amazing. um, just like I said, all the different dishes from the different countries, from France, Dubai, Japan,
Mhm.
Canada. It was just amazing what everybody's putting out, and it was their global take, on that dish. The good old American burger.
It really was, and it was funny because leading up to World Foods, I had had a lot of conversations with different
Hmm.
teams. I remember even talking to the team from Japan and Dubai, the teams, both teams. I ended up talking to them several or a few months
Hmm.
ahead, and it was so interesting to find out that burger is one of those really hot staple items in those countries just as much as it is here. Like there are burger shops opening up all over the
Hmm.
place. It's very, very competitive in those countries, just like it is here. And, so when that came to the world food stage, like you had some really heated competition going on to come out and win a category like that. How did that differ from kind of your march through in 2013? How did that feel different?
It felt different, because this year, this is my ninth year competing at WFC,
Mhm.
so I knew what to expect leading up to it. Been here several times, know what to expect. Um, leading up to it in 13, I had no clue what was happening. I was just like, "Hey, it's Vegas, great! Happy to be here," and that's all it was. But but now after that, a few years removed, it's like, okay, this is what we need to do, and take care of business. And I had a great team of sous chefs helping me out this year, which I couldn't have done it without them. Um, but it's kind of speechless sometimes, talking about it because it's like I still can't believe it, it really happened.
I totally get that. I mean, just from being
Yeah.
there, I can't even imagine what it was like competing. You know, the other thing that hit really big this year was, the only one cook in the first round. So you really only had one shot
Hmm.
to make it in the top 10. Previous years, you had two cooks that kind of averaged out. And so if you kind of, dipped a little on one, you had a chance to really make it up on the other. This year, it was one and done. How did that kind of affect your thinking going into your planning?
Yeah, I was nervous about that. It's like you said before, we've had the two cooks, and yeah, if you kind of screw up a little bit on one, you can hopefully make it up with a second. But yeah, that one cook, you had to make sure you nailed it. And our infused ingredient in the first round, well, I guess the only round, um,
Mhm.
we had to use, the Sam's Club coffee. And personally, I don't drink coffee that much. So trying to incorporate that in, it's like, okay, this is, trying to think of the best ways to do it. And I didn't want to make it overpower, because too much coffee, can,
Mhm.
if you don't like coffee, it can really put you off. So I didn't want to offend someone with too much. And so that was something I was concerned about, because that's an ingredient I don't usually cook with. a whole lot.
Mhm.
Practice with it a little bit, sure, but so that was tough trying to work around that. Work through that process, and then just to make sure during that cook we just really nailed it as best we could. And yeah, in that first round, we came through at fourth, and I was thrilled. I mean, I hadn't scored that high to that point. I think it was a 98 125, I think, on that first cook, and yeah, I was pretty excited
Mhm.
about that.
Yeah, there was a slim
Yeah.
margin between those points, and then you add in the master
hmm
judges with that 11th competitor going in. Now you're going into the top 10 round facing 11 people. Walk us through the 2 different cooks. What were your 2 different burgers?
Um, our burgers were the same basic components to it. Um,
Mhm.
the second, we just added more elements on the burger in the top 10 round. Um, I did some ground wagyu, for the patty on the first one, Gruyere, brioche bun, um, bourbon bacon jam, which we infused some of the
Mhm.
coffee into that, and kind of took that for our first one. And I'm sure I'm probably leaving, something, off. And then when we got to the top 10 round, added a few more elements to it. We had 2 Gringos Chupacabras to sponsor, and we had our choice of 4
Mhm.
seasonings. So I decided, well, let's see if we can use all 4 in different elements.
Wow.
So when we went ahead and did that, we had the brioche again. We did a lemon herb aioli, some arugula on top, and then I found a local butcher there in Dallas, and I had him do a custom grind for me. I got some ribeye, some chuck, short rib, and then I had that at a 70-30 grind. And then I went ahead and had them also add in a pound of bacon when they ground it. And get that little salt, a little bit of extra salt in there, smokiness.
Mhm.
Um, so we did that, and then had the Gruyere again, the bourbon bacon jam, sans coffee this time, and what was on top of that? And then did some herb infused. Oh, we had a runny egg there on top of the bourbon bacon jam, and then some herb infused butter. Coating the bun, and I think that was it.
I mean, you can't go wrong on a burger when it's fat layered upon fat, layered upon
Yeah,
fat, layered upon fat.
right.
And you get the fat, you get the salt, you get sweet, you get
Yeah.
smoky. You kind of really hit everything in there because you're already getting the savory
hmm
out of a, especially a grind like that. But I think you went into 70-30
Yeah.
blend, but then you added bacon in. So plus you had the herb butter on the bun, and that was the kind of burger that people want. I mean, that's what you go for. You don't go for a burger that you can wear a white shirt and have no worries.
Right.
You want to go for a burger that you're like half leaning over the
Yeah.
table. You got
Yeah.
napkins,
An
so you're
apron.
like trying
Yeah.
to, there's a lot going
Yeah.
on, but you did it in a manner because I remember hearing the master judges. You did it in a manner where they could taste everything.
hmm
They really felt like nothing was lost, and you were able to take those, which is a lot of components that typically they would struggle. People would
hmm
struggle with saying, okay, well, I'm missing this one and this one. You were able to find that harmonious blend in all those agreements to give people that full effect of what a world championship burger was. And you had to stand in front of the panel of master judges this year. That was the first time in World Food Championship history that happened. What was it like to not only go through the stress of the cook, you made it to the top 10 round, you cooked again, and instead of just turn in, now you're presenting to master judges. What was that like?
Uh, the worst thing, was just not knowing what they're going to say or what they're going to ask. Because you sit there
Mhm.
and I think we turned in sixth. So, I got to sit and watch, what happened to people before me. So that kind of gave me a little bit of time to, okay, well, maybe they'll ask me this, or maybe they'll ask me that. They just ask this person that. But you just never know what they're going to say.
Mhm.
And if they don't say anything, if they're just eating and they're not saying anything, it's like, well, does that mean it's good or does that mean it's bad if they're not asking anything? And you start second guessing yourself. Um,
Right.
and that was probably the hardest part is that and just the waiting. And it took a little bit
Right.
of time to get through everybody, and that's fine. And we also had the interpreters um, for the
Yep.
French and the Japanese team, which that was just interesting to see happen. So it took a while, which was okay. And then, I'd say just not knowing what to expect was probably the hardest part. I mean, sitting there, just sitting, next to everybody else was fine. That was kind of cool, just kind of chat here and there. And I felt bad though, our team, the rest of our teams had to go clean up our stations for us. Because we made a big mess. It's like,
Right.
sorry guys, I gotta go. And they had to
Yeah.
clean everything up. So,
I mean, it was interesting watching that because to me, of all the categories, burger was the most global.
mhm.
Like there was a huge
Yeah.
just mix. And so to listen to that, like you said, seeing the interpreters up there, really for the first time we've had
hmm
that, and because of having the master judges there and having to present your dish, that was really a way to showcase how global this has
Yeah,
become
agree.
by two teams had to have
hmm
interpreters just to talk about the food and interact with the master judges. So, I mean, you've got to walk away with not only did you win the category, you won the category against the world's best, but truly the world's best when you're standing up there with teams from other countries, which I just thought was fascinating to really watch. Man, I didn't just beat everybody that entered from
hmm
from the country, my home
Yeah.
country, but from around the world. That really has to feel good going into the unknown of final table this year.
Yeah, of course, I'm really proud to have won the category, and like you were talking about, it's such a global category this year. Really proud and honored to have been able to come out on top with the competition from all around the world. I mean, we had 5 different countries in the burger top 10.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, it's pretty exciting. Um, yeah, what else to say?
So, as you're on your march to final
Uh-huh.
table, this will be the second time you're challenging for the world title. It is a very different final
Yeah.
table now. How do you were super excited in 2013. It was just kind of like, whoa, man, this is crazy. This is all happening and it's Vegas and it's fun and it's big. This year is, like you said, is different. There is the evolution of food
hmm
sport and the World Food
Yeah.
Championship, a lot different. So, how do you kind of mentally prepare? Because there's not really a whole lot physically to do outside of maybe sharpening some skills, working on some basic
hmm
fundamentals. How do you mentally prepare for the unknown of final table this year?
Yeah, like you said, this is totally different from back in 13 when I was in the final table last. Back then it was a whirlwind. It was bam, 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 bam. There were no
Mhm.
breaks in between. They
Yep.
cooked, and then Saturday was top 10, Sunday was final table, Monday went home. And now it's kind of separated, and it's another event. So yeah, we got a lot of time to think about it. Right now, it's yeah, I'm just really thinking about it and wondering what it's going to be because we still don't have details yet. We don't know what we're going to be doing yet. Hopefully, we're going to be hearing more about that soon. But
Mhm.
until then, it's just I'm just waiting. So and just trying not to overthink it in my head because I just tend to overanalyze things, and it's like, well, it's so easy to do when we don't know what we're going to do.
I
Um,
think in that position, just like with anything,
yeah.
overthinking is probably your biggest
hmm
obstacle. Not necessarily what the challenges will be or cooking or anything else. It's the overthinking
Yeah.
part of the unknown, and then it's when you do know some different pieces, then you overthink those
Yeah.
pieces to think through them too
Yep.
far. So I think that it's definitely interesting because we've got a pretty significant wait between WFC 2022 and final table this
hmm
year. But I think once we get to Bentonville, Arkansas, all that excitement, all that camaraderie, all the seeing familiar faces, all that kicks back
Oh
in,
yeah.
and then it's just back to cooking
Yeah.
again.
Exactly. You're totally right. And that's one of the best things about WFC. No matter how far you make it, it's the camaraderie. Seeing everybody, year after year. Sometimes it's the only time of the year you see them, and
Yep.
it's like no time's passed. It's like, yeah, it's like, hey, it's just
Mhm.
like saw them yesterday. That's the best
It's
part.
literally the world's biggest family
Yeah.
reunion.
Yep.
It just is. So as you're going into the second time you've won a category, what is some advice you would give to the brand new competitors like a Dan Rain, who this is his first ride through WFC? What kind of advice would you pass on to a new food sport person that is really kind of making their way on the first round?
Uh, One thing I've always told people is just have fun with it. Just enjoy the moment.
Yep.
No matter how far you get, enjoy it. My first year, I never thought I'd make it past day one, first round of cooking. And just went just to have fun and have fun. If move on, great. Enjoy the moment. Don't overthink it. I know that's easier
Mhm.
said than done.
Yep.
Um, you also need to learn how to cook to a clock.
That's right.
And I think that's something that a lot of people may not think about for coming into it. He obviously, he's done well enough to make it this far. Um, but
Mhm.
anybody new coming in, that's definitely something you got to consider because once that time's up, you're done, whether you're done or not, you know.
That's very true. I mean, the clock is just as
Yeah,
significant as an
yeah,
ingredient, hands
yeah.
down. Where can people follow you on your food sport journey? Is there any place like social media places?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter and Instagram, Food Champ Dave, Facebook, just Dave Elliott. My barbecue team, Porky McBeef and the Cluckers, Facebook as well, and I think Instagram too. So, got a barb.
Uh,
No, go ahead.
how is that barbecue team going?
Good. Getting ready to start the season. Looking at events where we're going to start at. I think we're in Kansas City, so the first ones around here will be about late March. I don't know if we'll start that early or wait until April. So it's getting going, getting going. So just starting to get into planning mode, along with WFC, and you know, lots of things to put together.
It always
Yeah.
is. And guys, make sure that you're following Dave and his barbecue team on socials and just follow the food sport in general.
Hmm.
This is a different experience. If you've never been, you want to make sure you get out to a local food sport event and then make your way to World Food Championships this year in Dallas again as we make our fourth year for the 2023 World Food Championships. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at World Food Championships and then bookmark the website www.worldfoodchampionships.com. All of the headlines, the dates, the rules you want to know about food sport, that's where you go. And that information comes out kind of fast and furious. So make sure you check their website regularly so you can be in the know and be on the go. Well, we have been talking with the 2022 World Burger Champion, Dave Elliott. Thank you so much for your time
Hey,
today.
thank you.
And guys, seriously, sharing is caring. Share out this podcast, the Food Sport Central podcast of the WFC. And we look forward to seeing you at the next food sport event with the World Food Championships. See you next week.